Oh, yeah. Hi, guys. Tonight's a very special night because Amber and Joe is their anniversary. How many years? 12 years. Happy anniversary, Mom. And Dad.
All right. My microphone's not working for me. All right, everybody. Sorry about that. My technology is not working today, so I'm trying to figure that out. So much good and celebration today. I just want to start and just invite everybody, as we have been in the spirit of celebrating people and celebrating progress and journeys. I just invite everyone in here to just, as you're eating delicious cupcakes, if you feel safe to do so, to close your eyes and to take a deep breath. And I just want to remind you, I want to remind every person in here that you are so incredibly valuable. I want to remind you that your journey is unique and it is full of pieces that, while you may struggle or may feel are broken, are pieces that make you so incredibly unique and strong and brave. And I want you to know that you are worth celebrating. I want to remind you that you are not alone. That whatever barriers or struggles you are facing, that you are not too broken, not too far gone, not too unlovable. You belong, you are welcome, and you are loved as you are. And that's not just a cry from us here at TCG, but from God. I invite you to just take some deep breaths, to center your being, and just remember how much the miracle the oxygen is that is in your lungs. You know, as TCG is nearing on our 5th birthday this fall, it's just incredibly beautiful and poetic how many people make up this eccentric, beautiful little family. And we are so grateful that you are part of it. We're going to start with a song that we do around here a little bit. It's an anthem. It's a song. Sorry, I got to take my shoes off. I can't play guitar with my shoes on. What's wrong with me? It's a song that I think it just embodies our heart here at TCG and the heart of so many of you that are in this space. It's called Hands and Feet. I invite you to sing along if you want, to listen, to do whatever feels comfortable, whatever feels right. The strides we made, for all our blessings, we've fallen far away from truth, turning our face away from this hurting race. We turned our face away from you. We wanna be your hands, your feet. Without words, we'll let our actions speak. For every broken heart, for every widow, for those without shelter from the rain. Our eyes to you, looking for answers when we have been called to ease the pain. We wanna be your hands, your feet. Without words, we'll let our actions speak. Can only go so far. Draw us closer to your heart. Bring us back to you. 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 Oh God, our God, our creator, God, our friend, God who mothers us, God who sits with us, God who is near. God, I just want to send out a message of just love and acceptance in this space, God. We are so grateful for you. In your name, amen.
All right. I'm getting really spoiled. I've had 2 weeks off from preaching in a row. You don't get me tonight. A few weeks ago, we made a really exciting announcement. I almost said miss. Whoa, what the heck? Good Lord. Rue is joining our team as our new associate pastor. And tonight is their very first message, and I'm super excited about it, and they're very nervous about it. But I want you guys to give Rue a big welcome as they officially join our pastoral teaching team.
All the pressure. I'm not going to go on the stage. I'm going to be here because this feels more comfy. Hi, guys. Hello. Hey. Yeah, so as Christy was saying, I am the associate pastor here at TCG, but I've also been involved in TCG for about, do I need to stand in a different spot? There we go. Okay. For probably about 3 years now, in different volunteering, staff positions. I think if I were to look back now, all I know about TCG, I don't think I would have taken this position a year ago, but I'm so grateful I did. I've learned a lot from y'all. So yeah, I thank you for this opportunity to preach and kind of share my thoughts about the verse we're going to go over today. So growing up, I grew up really evangelical, and a lot of that preaching back then was pretty much them talking at you instead of with you. So I don't want to do that, and that's not my heart in this space. So what I want this to be is a communal piece, as we do a lot at TCG, and I also want it to be a dialogue. So with that being said, if anything that I say tonight doesn't lead you into healing or growth or more compassion, feel free to leave it at the door. It is not a necessity. I also want to say if there's anything that you've had to leave behind, I want to process that with you and hold space if it was harmful in any way. So that's my introduction spiel before I go into the verse we're going to talk about tonight. So we're talking about Matthew 7. We're going to read Matthew 7, 15 through 20, about Jesus talking about we're going to be known by our fruit. So this chapter comes at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, where essentially he walks us through, and his followers through some pretty radical teachings about what it means to be a more compassionate human being. And then because Jesus doesn't give us this, do A, B, and C, and then you'll get a spiritual gold star at the end of the day, he kind of gives this litmus test at the end of it of what it looks like to be known by a fruit and to be known as loving, more compassionate human beings. So he leaves the decision in our hands. So I'm going to read Matthew 15, Matthew 7, starting at verse 15, and we're going to throw it up on the screen. Thank you, Scott. So it says, "Beware of false prophets who have come disguised as harmless sheep, but are really vicious wolves. You can identify them by their fruit, that is, by the way they act. Can you pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? A good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. So every tree that does not produce good fruit is chopped down and thrown into the fire. Yes, just as you can identify a tree by its fruit, you can identify people by their actions." So, as I talked about, I grew up in a really evangelical setting, and I think there's been a lot of really harmful messaging around the black and white thinking of good and bad, right? That can lead to some really harmful perfectionism and isn't helpful. So I want to kind of reframe the terminology here and say what I've learned. So Christy challenged me as I get into some analysis paralysis a lot. So I was challenged to look at what it means to grow grapes. What does that process look like? What does it look like to cultivate grapes from a vine? And in that process, I learned that it is not just a one-time thing. In fact, it takes 3 to 4 years for grapes to grow, and it's an annual process. So one of the things I wanted to name in this space when we kind of get stuck in that black and white harmful perfectionism space is that, there we go, is that a bad fruit isn't produced by just one action or one moment. It is produced by a pattern of behavior throughout the years. Just as we are not one moment or one actions, we are the totality of our actions and moments. So there's a more holistic way of looking at that. And I think there's a quote from a Catholic tradition that says, that kind of puts it in this way, is as fruit discloses the cultivation of a tree, so a person's actions discloses the cultivation of their mind and spirit. So instead of you getting in the headspace, as I've done before, is like it's just this one thing, that means it's good or bad. But rather it is the continual growth and pruning of that vine. I also think that it can be, in that space we have, I'm gonna go over here real fast. A lot of times we can be judged by one moment or one thing. And I think we see that a lot, especially with like working with our friends on the streets of like, you're judged by one bad day, right? And you're put a label on that, instead of looking at the complexity of our human nature, and can be reduced down to a label, and that it can be really harmful when it comes to understanding what that means for us. I'm gonna look. Sorry, guys, I'm jumping all around. Please be patient with me because I'm very nervous, but I appreciate y'all. I think that one of the things I noticed a lot in looking at what it means to grow a healthy, grapevine is that they are also Thank you, guys. So we see these kinds of harmful momentary judgments a lot when working with our friends on the streets, as I was talking about. People cast judgments based on one bad action or one bad moment, rather than seeing the totality of their humanity. And I want to name the harmfulness of that binary thinking here, because prescribing people as either good or bad reduces them to a label instead of seeing their multifaceted nature. And I think Mother Teresa put it really good when I was like looking up and reading this. She said, if you judge people, you have no time to love them. And I think that is really important to mention when it comes to this verse of like looking at the good and bad. So if that's a reaction for y'all on that. One of the second thing I wanted to mention for y'all is like, as I was looking at what it meant to grow a healthy grapevine, is we cannot grow a healthy grapevine without the support. So what often happens whenever they will grow a vine, they actually put a pole in the ground, and they put wires on that pole. So they'll attach them to a support system. And without that support system, the vine will bend and break under the pressure and weight of the season. So just like people, we have to have a support system that is and healthy and strong, and we can lean into. Yeah, and it also requires a constant support system, and what you're leaning on is it needs to be strong. So I kind of wanted to break that down too in this verse of what it means, because Jesus is talking about how we are known by our fruit, and the difference between what we say and what we do. So I think when we look at support systems and the people in our lives, there comes a time of assessment too, of what is the thing we're leaning on, what is the people we're leaning on, are they someone that we can trust? And I think it's hard, especially for people that haven't experienced what a healthy and trustworthy relationship can be like because of just trauma experiences in relational spaces. It can be really hard to determine what that looks like. So I just have like some questions to throw out for y'all when it comes to looking for that support is, so does this person have an active investment in your well-being? Are they someone that are going to be willing to wrestle with you in hard spaces? Are they going to be someone that is going to hold tension with you when there's conflict? Are they going to be someone that is going to call you out when they see you slipping? Like those investments in your day-to-day well-being. Does this person's presence in your life make you want to lean into growth and healing, or does it make you want to slip back into really harmful behaviors, or are they actively harming you? And this also goes back to the verse of what the key point is does their actions match what they're saying? I say this a lot at the Outreach Center when I'm sitting with people, is especially for people who are processing just that. Like I'm sitting with someone, I've talked to them about something that has been hurtful for me, and they apologize, but then they go right back and do it, right? They do the exact same thing that I just talked to them that was harmful. So the phrase I use a lot is an apology without a change of behavior is just manipulation. So if you're going to sit there and say something that you're going to do and you feel sorry for, it has to be followed up with an action. So I also think that when it comes to these questions and assessing what it means in your life to build a healthy support system, I think it needs to come with an expectation, without an expectation of perfection, but requires a posture of being willing to lean in and wrestle with the ways they can support you better. So it's by no means saying that you need to do these things all the time. It's more saying, is this something you're willing to work with me on? I think that's something that I hope everyone at TCG feels like it in their space, that the person next to them, are you willing to work with me on these things as I express this with you? So the other part of growing grapes and fruit and what that looks like, that I kind of had a hard time with this week in processing with Christy is the fact that gardeners often create intentional tension in the vine so it can grow stronger. And the more struggle a vine goes through, the better fruit it produces. So I think there's a really beautiful way to look at that, but I want to unpack some of the more harmful messages of that, which is the fact that there's a lot of sentiment and I think narrative and stuff like I've heard even growing up is that like it's God's will for you to suffer. It's God's will for you to go through trauma and hardship, and I don't believe that is true. I believe that leads to some really traumatic experiences. And I don't believe God puts you in a position to just like test you to learn some lesson, some divine lesson. Rather, I think what the message is here, and what I think Jesus would say is that hardships are a part of life, right? You're not going to get through life without some bumps and bruises. It's going to be there. And when they come, know that they don't lack purpose. You can create meaning out of those struggles. There can be a fruit from these hard seasons, from these traumatic experiences. It's not all for naught. And I think that's on us to build and cultivate too, and on us as a community to build and cultivate that in each other. And there's also, in that same vein, there is some really harmful narrative around pruning when it comes to grapevines, and what it means to prune grapevines. I think that it's like it's still that like you have to be perfect mentality, and that is by no means true. So I want to pruning is an aspect that happens when you grow grapes, and it ultimately helps that vine grow. But I don't think that there's it is, again, like God is putting you through the test, and he's like, you have to cut away all the parts of you that are bad and all these things. Rather, I think I want us to focus on the autonomy we have in our lives, and our ability to make decisions that are either helpful or harmful. And I think a way that you can look at pruning in this aspect is rather like boundary setting, what it looks like to set boundaries with yourself, with others. What does it look like to kind of narrow down those aspects in our world that expend unnecessary or ultimately harmful energy, right? So a part of that is when they cut back the vines, when they start to prune them, they also don't. They save that vine for compost, and ultimately goes back into the soil. And they also save a piece of it for photosynthesis, so it can give life to the rest of the vine, to the rest of the story. And one of the things that I want to mention with that is that the branch that was removed, good farmers often compost it so it can be used to grow rich soil for the next year. And in that, what I want you to hear is the hard lessons learned and mistakes made do not go to waste. They have a purpose and provide life to the rest of your story. And then like if pruning does not occur, if you let it grow wild, then energy is extended in areas that are ultimately unbeneficial, and do not grow good fruit. So I'm going to pause us there for a little bit. I'm going to give you a discussion question. I'm going to drink some water. So the discussion question I want to have at y'all's tables is, how have you learned from a really difficult moment or season in your life? How has it shaped you? So I want you to talk about that for probably the next 5 to 10 minutes with each other. I'm gonna get more water real fast. I'm very sweaty. Yeah. I want to get up there and cry. Mhm.
Take a minute and name a time. Like, you know what I mean? So you don't feel like you've got to just
Keep going.
spin your wheels. That's always okay.
The very thing I'm talking about is like, yeah. I want to get there, just like, as I'm talking about perfectionism.
Here's the narrative in my head. Here's all the things I did wrong. So why I shouldn't or whatever.
Thanks. Have you gotten Okay. Is it on? I don't know if it's on. It is. Okay. Hi, guys. I'm going to bring us back and hope that y'all had some time to process that a little bit. As I have regulated my body a little bit more, I want to name one of the things that's happening in this space that I think kind of is a big byproduct of this verse too, is the fact that I think authenticity and showing up in spaces, being very vulnerable, is very difficult to do, and oftentimes leads to a fruit of masking, and can make it really difficult to connect in this space. So as I'm processing and coming back to some grounding, I want to just name that that's what's happening for me in this moment. is the need to make sure that I'm communicating what I've been processing in an effective way, and also just naming the fact that I think a lot of leadership and church leadership, pastors especially, don't come into that space and don't kind of share that. So I want to do that for y'all tonight, to show that that's important, and also that's what ultimately leads to healthy fruit. I don't want to just get up here and pretend like I have it all together, and then not give y'all the chance to do the same and feel like you can be vulnerable and communicate. So I'm going to leave you with a question, but I'm also going to share first, which is the next discussion question is, what are areas in your life that are stretching and growing you, and growing? What are the things that you could learn from? And this is one of them for me. This is a huge growing point, and I'm very grateful for it. And I'm also very terrified of it. So I think that it creates a lot of imposter syndrome in myself, to come up here and preach from this, but also have a lot of questions myself about what this verse means, and lessons that I've been told versus lessons that I hope to be learning. So unpacking some of those really toxic theology pieces is hard. It's hard for me in this space to kind of have that in the back of my brain as I'm sharing with y'all. So this is a huge growing edge. And I'm also very grateful for everyone in this room to give me the opportunity to do something that I was processing with Liz earlier. I've been in spaces asking for this opportunity for a long time. Sorry, I'm not going to cry. And not being given the opportunity. And that's huge for me. It's huge for my growth and my faith journey. So I'm incredibly grateful for y'all and what this means. So. Thank you. So now y'all get to talk about it with each other about what that means for y'all's life as well. Thank you. Love you all.
There I am. Hey guys, can you hear me? Okay, cool. I don't let teaching moments go by very often, and I have one, so I'm going to use it. Okay, so I asked Rue to come back up here with me. Okay, so listen. This is something that I think is really important for all of us, because I think this is something that we all struggle with. So in the spirit of authenticity, okay, one of the things that I just want to speak. This verse in particular talks about fruit, right? And that we're going to be known by our fruit. How many of y'all garden and grow fruit? Okay, see, not many of us, myself included, but I know a few things. And one of the things that I know is that, for example, if Bob and I did a strawberry patch a couple years ago. Lynn wanted to grow strawberries. So the first year, strawberries grew, okay? A, not very many strawberries grew. And B, they didn't taste very good, right? Like they were little and they weren't super sweet. Like they were kind of bland. Like they were fruit, but they weren't amazing, right? And so sometimes I think what we do, because we're human, we set ourselves up to compare ourselves to others, right? And so it would be easy for me to say we were a failure at growing strawberries that year. Those strawberries were terrible. We really did fail at growing strawberries because we tried to move them and that didn't work very well. But anyway, but the point is, Jeff, you did a great job helping to move the strawberries. We didn't take care of them very well. Okay, get back to the point. It doesn't matter. I started a thing at my house, okay, about the strawberries. But what I'm saying is, second year, right, strawberries get a little bit better. Next year, they grow a little bit better. They grow bigger, they grow stronger, they grow sweeter. Do you see what I'm saying? So when we start talking about being known by our fruit, we also have to keep in mind the age of our vine, the size of our fruit, what we're planting, what we're doing. And so I say this because as we're talking and processing over here, Rue's like, oh, that was terrible. I was like, that was not terrible. But what I want you all to hear, because we all do it, is we compare ourselves to other people. And so we inherently say, my fruit's not as good as their fruit, or my fruit's not as experienced as their fruit, or as big, or as tasty, or whatever. Mind your own business and focus on your fruit. You feel me? Like, if your fruit is sobriety and you're on day 2, own day 2. Don't compare yourself to someone that's in year 2, right? If your struggle is mental health and you are 48 hours without a panic attack, like celebrate the heck out of that. Don't compare yourself to somebody who's years and years and years into that battle. If you're struggling with other things like that, stop spending the sideways energy to compare yourself to everybody else and focus on your vine, your fruit, what you're doing in your season. Capiche? Capiche? Capiche. You're what? What'd you say? Oh, well, that's a whole nother song, Jack. We got to talk about that later. So all that to say, if you saw where we started 10 years ago, you were amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Holly, you want to come close us? I think Holly's got a poem she wants to share. Didn't you have a poem? Holly's love language is poetry, so here you go.
Okay, well, to close us, when Rue was sharing a little piece of their message and their heart, and we were creatively trying to figure out what creative pieces to bookend, I sent them this poem just thinking, here are some words. Maybe if nothing else, maybe it could give you some inspiration or just some support. And they were like, no, I would like that one to be shared. So this is a poem I wrote called Roots. I need the light to invade these corners of my heart where trauma and anxiety have settled. Resilient, I am tall, strong, and grounded. Healing in my branches, life pours out from every leaf. I have more than survived. I have defied the odds. To look at me, you see poise, but below the surface is a depth that deceives, roots that nourish and take, stories told of where I've been and where I am going. There are scars, wounds, branches bare, and yet there is growth. My strength is not in how tall I stand, but in how deep these roots have reached. Thanks. All right, friends, please help yourself to cupcakes and more pizza, and feel free to hang around, and we love you all.